Everyone. Grateful to have you with us today for our career webinar. I have with us a wonderful guest, Jake Boyer. Jake and I have met about a year ago. We were um, we're both on the President Leadership Council, and it was a pleasure to meet with Jake and his wife. And he's just been in the back of my mind of inviting him to come to our career webinar. He comes to us with a lot of experience in real estate, but he loves BYU-Pathway, the mission of BYU-Pathway and the students, and he has done quite a bit in helping students in understanding more about real estate. So we'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself. We also have with us about 8 students that are joining on the panel, and they will be asking questions as we go through our webinar today. For those of you who are watching this webinar live on YouTube, you are welcome to submit your questions. I will be watching and looking for those questions, and we'll try to answer a number of the questions that you might have as students that are watching this live. So with that, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Jake and give him an opportunity to introduce himself. Jake?
Thank you so much, Grant, and thank you to all of you students for joining this live webinar. It's really a blessing for me to join you and to see your beautiful faces, those that I can see, and it's so exciting that you are interested in enhancing your careers and your growth all across the world. This is the beauty of BYU Pathway, is it really brings us together, I believe, as brothers and sisters from all across the world to unite together. And it's a wonderful cause, meaning we're trying to enhance our learning and our growth. And we all know that learning and education is of God. And so that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for being here. They've asked me to do just a quick introduction of myself, and then we'll open it up to questions, I believe, Grant. But again, it's great to be with you. My background, as Grant mentioned, is in real estate development, and I'll explain in a minute what that is. Just to give you a little background on myself, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I attended Brigham Young University, BYU, Provo, and my main focus was on, my degree was in finance. I served a mission in Frankfurt, Germany, as a young missionary. And after I finished BYU, I started working in the real estate world, doing medical real estate. And I would develop surgical centers, medical office buildings, and those types of things. And then I eventually went back to school to get a master's degree. And my master's degree was in real estate development at a school called MIT in Boston. And my time at MIT was awesome. I was the only member of the Church of Jesus Christ in my class, and that was an awesome experience for me to get to know people from all over the world who were also interested in real estate, and to kind of grow my skill set and my connections and that type of thing. After I completed my studies at MIT, I ended up starting my career with, my father founded a real estate company 53 years ago, and he invited me to come back and work with him. And we started working on a large mixed-use development in downtown Salt Lake called the Gateway. And he asked me to come back and be the project manager for that project. And it was a 2.1 million square feet. I don't know what that is in meters, square meters, but anyway, it was a mixed-use project that we were building in time for the Salt Lake City Olympics, the Salt Lake City 2002 Olympics. And so that was a tremendous opportunity and challenge for me, and great learning experience as a young real estate executive. And then over the years, I've had the opportunity to work on all different types of development. And I was just going to show you actually a couple of pictures that kind of show the type of development we do, because maybe it gives you, and I'll only spend a couple of minutes on this. Let me see if I can figure out how to screen share this. Hang on here. Oh, it's not turned on. So I'll wait till it's turned on. Is that on, Felmore? Okay, we're on now. Okay. Tell me if you can see. Can you see?
Yep, that's great.
Okay. Let me open this up. So this just gives you a quick overview of the type of real estate that we do: office, retail, government, medical research, industrial. This is the United States, and these are the different states in the United States that we've developed properties. This was the project that I began with. This is called the Gateway in downtown Salt Lake and was built in time for the Olympics. We do a lot of office and biomedical buildings. This is a large office building in downtown Salt Lake that we built over 30 years ago. This is our corporate headquarters, the building I'm sitting in right now. This is a building that we've done down in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona. This is a biomedical building in Phoenix, Arizona. Another building in Arizona. We've done a lot of buildings for the University of Utah. So this is a building for the University of Utah, another one for a company, a biomedical company related to the University of Utah. So this just gives you a glimpse. I'll just kind of go through this. In Utah, there's a lot of technology. So we built buildings for Tesla, Dell, many of the large tech companies in Utah, all throughout sort of this whole area. So these are buildings we built. Other tech buildings we built here. So this just gives you a quick overview. I'll go down to multifamily. We've also built a lot of apartment buildings. This is a building that we recently built in downtown Salt Lake. It's an apartment building. Another apartment building that we're working on right now. This is an apartment building that we have under construction right now in Salt Lake City. This is 220 units. Another apartment building we've got, and townhomes that we build and lease to people. Another apartment complex we have. So anyway, I won't go on too long, but this just gives you an overview. These are apartments or townhomes that we lease. And then we've done a lot of government buildings. So this is for the IRS, also the IRS, which is the taxing entity in the United States. And these are different medical buildings for the government. So, and then we build a lot of industrial buildings. This is a large industrial location that we have where we have 15 million square feet of industrial, which are large warehouse buildings. They're not very exciting, but they house a lot of warehousing. This is a 1 million foot warehouse building that we have in Utah. So anyway, these are the types of projects that we have as a company. We've done a lot of buildings for Amazon, who ends up delivering stuff all across the United States. So anyway, I'll stop sharing there, but that just gives you a quick glimpse. Let's see if I'm able to unshare this. Just one second. Okay. Let's see here. Have I stopped sharing yet? Or is it still sharing?
No, it's still on.
Okay. Sorry. Stop share. Okay. Is it off now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So anyway, that just gives you a quick overview of the types of projects that we've worked on. About 8 years ago, my wife and I, we were asked to go and serve a mission together with our family and to go back to Frankfurt, Germany. And it was really exciting for me to go back to the same mission where I had served previously, to serve as mission leaders in that location, and to bring our 4 children with us. And some were excited and some were not excited to go. And it was a great journey for us. And it had a lot of awesome experiences and some hard experiences with it. But it was a blessing to go serve and to step away from real estate for 3 years and to be able to do that. And then after our mission, I came back and have been the CEO of our company since, for the last 5 years since we've been home. And we came back during the COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic, and that was in 2020. I think we got some feedback here. In 2020. And so as you can imagine, that had there were a lot of unique challenges, but also blessings during COVID. If any of you were serving missions at that time, it was, what I mean. And just looking back over the course of my career and personal journey, I'm just so grateful for the things we've been able to do and the experiences we've had. And it's, real estate's up and down. And we kind of compare it to Joseph of Egypt, who prepared for, in the good times, he always prepared for the down times. And, there were 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine. And we kind of say that in real estate. When you're feasting, then you want to set stuff aside for when the famine will come. And if you're smart about it, then you can weather the storm through the ups and downs. So in terms of personal, my family, we love to ski. We love to travel. We love to just go to the beach. We love to just do all kinds of fun things outdoors together. So anyway, that's a quick overview, I think, of my personal background, and I guess we can move on, right, Grant? Is that okay?
That's wonderful, Jake. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for sharing those slides. I think it gives a really good idea as to those watching what your company does. Um, Jake, real estate is one of those things to where, you said that you're kind of grew up in that industry, but the beautiful thing about being in real estate is that no matter where you're at, there's always going to be real estate.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that there are students here, and I'm reading some of the comments in the YouTube on the YouTube channel that they find this to be really interesting, that this topic is really interesting. What advice do you give to students that might be interested in real estate? Like, what are some fields that they could be going into? Maybe they don't have all the capital, but they love that, whether it's architecture or engineering or what real estate encompasses a large spectrum of skill sets and talents. Could you speak to that a little bit as students might find some interest in real estate as to what kind of areas of focus they can kind of receive education in?
absolutely. And you said it really well, Grant. There are so many different avenues. Real estate touches so many different fields. And that begins with, when we're building one of these buildings, there are brokers oftentimes that we use to buy land. So there's a brokerage direction, and a broker usually buys and sells land, buys and sells buildings, leases buildings. So there's an avenue that's called brokerage. And in a lot of your countries, there are brokerage houses, one's called CBRE. And I know they're in many of your countries. And so brokerage is one aspect. The other aspect is attorneys. We use a lot of attorneys with real estate. So, some people like to specialize, if you're going to be an attorney, like to specialize in real estate law. And so that's another avenue. The other is architecture. We always hire architects and engineers. So architecture and engineering is another aspect. We may have a vision for generally what we want to have in a certain location, but not have a specific design. And that's when we engage an architect and an engineer to help us determine exactly what it is we're going to develop in a certain location. So engineering, architecture. The other aspects of development are construction. Within our company, we have a construction management company, which basically oversees, we still hire a general contractor. So you could go work for a general contractor to build these buildings, and you could be in project management of these construction projects. So that's a possibility. Within our own organization, we have our own construction managers that oversee projects. So there's a lot of project management that ensures that projects are built on time and on budget. Other aspects are, let's see, there's construction management, there's property management. Once a project is built, if it's an apartment project, for example, we need people that will help us lease these apartment units. Or if it's an office building, we need someone that will help lease the office building. So that's another management process. Or once the building's built, we need someone to help us maintain the building, to hire or hire landscapers, or hire window washers, or hire janitorial staff. And that's the other side, is just being involved in the maintenance of these buildings. Because if you build them and do not maintain the buildings, then that's not good either. So real estate has a lot of different reaches all throughout the world. And everywhere we go, we sit usually in a building or a home or a shopping center. And there is a lot of management that goes behind making those places successful for us. So.
That's great, Jake. Thank you so much. We're going to go to some of the questions that we have from the students that are on the panel here. We'll start with Matthias, and then we'll go to Annette. Go ahead, Matthias.
Thank you, Elder Grant and Brother Jack. So my question is, being a project manager, what principles have really helped you, and more specifically in your academic pursuit, especially in MIT, to stand out, to be successful among all the students that were not even members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? What principle did you really exhibit there that helps you to be very successful?
Well, thank you, Matthias. That's a great question. And I think there are a lot of principles that actually relate to the gospel of Jesus Christ that go hand in hand with success. And I think those begin with integrity. You know, a lot of the success of members of the Church of Jesus Christ in business is when people feel like they are trusted and that they are people that have integrity and that they can trust with hard and complicated things. I think that is super important, to always be trustworthy, obviously. I think other aspects is just hard work, exerting, focus on whatever it is that you're going to do, and knowing that you're going to complete whatever task it is. It's not super complicated to be successful in the world, I believe. I don't think you have to be the smartest person. I think you have to be the one that is willing to stick with a responsibility or a job longer than anybody else and make sure that it gets done. And just, it's back to that trust. There are a lot of people that can put on a good face or a good facade, and maybe they can even interview well in a job. But if they get hired and they don't do what they say they're going to do, then they're not going to last very long in their job. And so I think it really comes down to being willing to follow through and do whatever you have to do to make happen what needs to happen. We have a lot of managers in our business, and if they don't follow through on keeping our tenants happy, making a building successful, then it comes to the surface eventually, and it can lead to negative repercussions. So we really try to hire people that are self-motivated, don't have to be told everything, and that are forward thinking and basically will think ahead as to what things need to happen to be successful. So I don't know if that answers the question, but those are kind of the top things that stand out in my mind on that question.
Great, thank you. Annette, go ahead, and then we'll hear from Doris.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, and being part of the real estate internship. It has really made me to gain so much interest in real estate. And at first I was thinking that it was something so difficult, but being in it, reading about it, the case studies has really made me to love real estate, and maybe in future I'll consider doing a course in it. So my question is, what are the risks, stroke challenges that you face in the real estate business, and how have you been able to handle these risks and or challenges?
Well, thank you, Annette. And we've loved having Annette. One of the opportunities that BYU-Pathway has is we've actually set up a real estate internship. So for those of you that are interested in the future, you can apply for that. I think we'll be starting that again in the fall. We're almost done with this semester. But yeah, in terms of the risks, real estate, you know, every business that has reward comes with risk. So anywhere where there's a reward, there's going to be a commensurate risk. And with real estate, there are risks, but there's also great rewards if you are wise about certain principles. The principles, I believe it's like anything. If you follow certain key principles, the risks are going to decrease. Now, you can't control everything in the external environment. You know, a lot of times you'll have government decisions that will affect what you do. And, you know, a pandemic, for example, COVID-19, we couldn't have expected what the risks were with COVID-19 until it happened. We own office buildings, for example. And what do you guys think happened when COVID-19 hit with offices? Well, we have a lot of people, but you can imagine a lot of people stopped going into offices. So we had a lot of office buildings that were sitting there. People were paying rent on them. The companies were paying rent, but they were empty. And so there's a lot of risks that you can't anticipate. But that being said, if you follow certain principles, and most of those principles are economic principles that we're teaching in the real estate internship, and that is making sure that returns on various projects, that they make sense. We can look at market studies to know what the rents are in a certain market, so we can anticipate that. And then if we set up the financial model of a project so that it's successful over the long, you know, so that it makes sense to move forward with a project, then it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk. And we kind of know that we may do a little bit better or a little bit worse, but things are not going to be disastrous. So I think that comes with experience and with time. And that's why it's important to, if you're going to do investment of any sort, whether it be real estate or anything else, it's important to connect with people that have done it for a while and that know sort of what those calculated risks are and what the parameters are of risk that you should stay within, if that makes sense. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Doris, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, hello everyone. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. I'm Doris Adezi from Nigeria. I'm a medical laboratory scientist and currently studying medical coding and billing in BYU. Please, I really admire those buildings you just showed us. They are really lovely. All the buildings have its own design. I want to know, how do you stay updated on the market fluctuations and regulations with the regulatory changes? How do you do it?
Sorry, how do you stay what? What was that word? Sorry.
How do you stay updated on the market fluctuations and regulatory changes? Are there no regulations guiding the kind of structures you put in? How do you know what to put in at a particular time?
Okay, sorry, I can barely, your sound is a little off. Grant, did you hear that? How do you say what?
Can you hear me very well now?
Is there someone
Hello?
else that heard that? Yeah, we can hear you, but
I can hear you. I can hear it. I
Okay,
mean, I
what was
heard it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
It's just I'm not understanding
Yeah.
the word. Sorry. What did?
Okay, I said, how do you stay updated on market fluctuations
updated.
and regulatory changes? Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't hear the word updated. That's the word we were trying to get.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great question, Doris. There are a lot of ways that we stay updated. And actually, it's easier today than it's ever been to stay updated. In fact, the biggest challenge we have is we're almost inundated with too much information in today's age. But with AI, actually, it's really helpful in terms of, you know, we're using AI a lot more in our business because we can do market studies and market, you know, there are a lot of different programs out there that will enable us to do up-to-date market analysis. You know, for example, with rents, we just subscribed for, you know, there's an AI program that will give us market residential rental rates in any part of the country, kind of almost down to the dollar. And so we have a lot of opportunity to get market information. We also hire people a lot of times to do market studies in different locations. And then it's important to just watch general trends in business. I read a lot of different newspapers. I read a lot of different real estate journals, like the Wall Street Journal and other things, just to keep updated on what the current trends are, because you do have to sort of stay updated on what the economic headwinds might be coming with your project. For example, a big part of real estate is interest rates, okay? So interest rates are affected much more by policy and by how the general economy is doing, how inflation is inflation high, is it low? And that will play into what interest rates are going to be. And if we have low interest rates in real estate, projects are much more likely to be able to move forward and be successful. If we have high interest rates, it's much more likely that we will not be able to get a project off the ground and get going on a project. So does real estate, is it affected by the outside world? Absolutely. Do we need to be updated or follow updates and news? Absolutely. So just like any business, you have to have as much information as you can, and that will play into your decision matrix on whether to move forward or not on a project. So that's a great question. Sorry it took me a minute to hear it. I appreciate it, Doris.
If I may add to that, Jake, also having been in the real estate industry myself, there's so much information, sometimes it's hard to kind of decipher it. And I think that what you're sharing with AI is a great tool to have. One of the things that I found to be very helpful is what we call boots on the ground. The idea is like, okay, rather than just only looking at reports, make sure that you have some physical exposure to, okay, walk the job site, look at the property, look at the, talk to the people that kind of know. And I have found that to be very helpful in my experience. And being able to understand the information that you're given rather than just say, if you read a report and you only read the summary, but you don't understand all the details, you probably should learn to understand all the details so you can kind of see through it. Sometimes, in my experiences, I've worked for companies where the project didn't quite pencil out. It didn't come with the returns or the percentage that they're looking for. And so they would put in some future, there's some things that you could tweak. And the joke is you can make anything work on an Excel spreadsheet. You just change some numbers and it works. And so I don't know what your experience has been with that, Jake, but when you look at a real estate project, whether it's development, commercial, residential, aside from percentage, what are some key things that you look for? Like, okay, to know whether or not this deal is a really good one, that we spend the time to really look at it, what are some key things that you look for?
That's a great question, and you said it very well. I think you have to do a lot more than just read a couple of reports. One of the key things is we do a lot of analysis on just comparable deals in a certain area where we're looking at developing something. We'll look around what's happening in the area. We'll look around at what things have sold for in those particular areas. What are we call it cap rates. Cap rates are what we base sell prices on. And what are the cap rates in the market, where we're developing, whether that be in Salt Lake or in Arizona, and those cap rates vary from, state to state, place to place. So those are factors that we definitely take into account.
Will you explain what cap rates are? Just
Yeah.
so, 'cause I know that's a term that's used a lot and people can sound really intelligent when they use that.
Yeah, a cap rate it's a capitalization rate. And a capitalization rate is the rate which is used if you divide the income on a building by a certain cap rate, that gives you what the valuation of that building would be. And so cap rates, the lower they are, the higher the value of property. The higher they are, the lower the value of the property. And so it's not a super complicated formula, but basically you'd take the net operating income of an asset divided by a percentage of which is a capitalization rate. So typically, you know, capitalization rates are between 5 to 10%. So if you took the net operating income divided by like 5%, maybe on a really good apartment building, or right now in office, your capitalization rate is going to be really high because a lot of people don't want office because of the pandemic, and people are still not coming back to the office as much as they were beforehand, if that makes sense. So I can't remember if I answered that question, Grant, but
That's great.
high level.
That was great. I'm going to jump to a question that was asked here, and there's a few of them that kind of follow the same idea. Then we're going to come to Solomon that has a question as well. But going on our YouTube channel, this is one from Richard. There's a couple of them that are similar. And Richard said, who's from Jamaica, he says, it is my dream to go into real estate. In terms of owning properties and building, but without any experience, what advice would you give me on how I should start out? So for someone that is really interested in real estate, where's a great place that they could go to start to get that experience? You know, maybe they don't have the capital and but they want to go into it. They love the real estate. They want to participate. Where are some places that they could start?
You know, that's a great question. And it's actually what we spent most of in the class that we had right before this class in the real estate internship. It's what we spent almost the whole time on. And that is, we talked about networking. And, you know, we all hear about the word networking, but what does that mean? You know, and the thing that's great is you all can present yourself as students to different companies and really break into the networking opportunities. What I would begin with is evaluate what real estate companies exist in the city where I live. You know, where are there real estate opportunities where I live? If I live in Kenya or Nigeria or in the Philippines, in the city where I am, are there real estate companies that exist? And then the great thing is while you're a student, you can always reach out to somebody there and say, I'd love, you know, I'm a student at BYU-Pathway. I would love to just come and spend 15, 20 minutes and just learn a little bit more about the real estate industry. And even if, you know, and maybe in that first meeting, you're not being really direct about getting a job with them, but you say, hey, I want to find out, where would you point me? You know, if you get a meeting with somebody, where would you point me? What job opportunities are you aware of in our city that pertain to real estate? And that's networking. So they may not give you a job, the first person that you reach out to, but then you start meeting with other people. And the great thing is, again, as a student, you have kind of a much higher probability of getting in the door with people than anybody else. Because if you say, I just am trying to learn more about the real estate industry, and I'd love to have the opportunity to sit down. I get people reaching out to me probably once a week, maybe twice a week, sometimes wanting to come meet with me. And I usually almost always, if they approach it as, I'm a student and I'm trying to learn more about real estate, could I come sit with you for 15 to 30 minutes? I always say yes. I always say yes, because I may not have a job opportunity for them, but I think first of all, if I can give them a little advice and feedback, and then a lot of times when I'm sitting with them, I'll think, oh, this, you know, I have heard recently that, you know, certain brokerage firms need to hire people, or, you know, there are banks that are in real estate. You know, that's another avenue that I didn't talk about, but banking. There's real estate banking, and, you know, there's banks that are looking for real estate executives. I recognize that in many of your countries, though, there may not be a lot of established real estate companies. I get that. And that's where I also would explore what real estate opportunities exist that might even be located in the US or in Europe, where you could work remotely for these companies. You know, there's a lot of these companies that are willing to do a lot of their back office work in other countries. So that's another opportunity as well. But I think a lot of it begins with networking. look around in your wards if there's people that work for companies, or wherever you might be, try to network. And I think that's the key.
Love that. Thank you, Jake. I would also add, if you have any, sometimes there's what's it called, where they have guest speakers that come to speak to the industry in real estate. If you join in some of those conventions, or sometimes they have guest speakers, and in economics or whatever, they'll come and speak, and you've got bankers there, you've got developers there, you've got builders there. It's a great place to rub shoulder, to network, like you said. Solomon, let's go to your question. Solomon, maybe we'll come back to you in just a second. Go ahead, Annette.
Okay, another question that I have, around in my city where I stay, I see there are many apartments which have been built, but those apartments have not been occupied. You find like maybe it was built like 1 year ago, or even offices. So I wanted to ask Jeff, what advice will he give to these investors, people who are in the real estate, and they have not done their background check, they have not done this research on real estate. So someone just come somewhere and build an apartment there, and after some time the apartment is not rented, and maybe this person took a loan to build this apartment, so they end up experiencing losses. What advice can he give to these people who are new in the real estate?
That's a great question, Annette. And I can tell that your real estate mind is working about this, and, I think repeating the question, I think Annette said she's seeing apartment buildings or office buildings being built, and they're empty, many of them. And here's the first thing is to build an apartment building takes sometimes 2 or 3 years. So what could have happened is some of these projects could have gotten underway when the economy or the market was going really, really good, and someone thought, oh, it doesn't matter what I build, everything's going to get occupied, everything's going to get filled. And sometimes in real estate, we get exuberant about how awesome the real estate market's going, and that nothing can go wrong. And that's maybe, I don't know what happened in these specific examples, but maybe that's what happened. Maybe interest rates were really low, and they had a loan, and those interest rates were really low, and they had an investor that was willing to put money into the deal. And so they wanted to get the money deployed. And so they built these projects even without fully understanding what the market needs are. And maybe the market needs were not quite there. Maybe there wasn't demand for new apartments. Maybe there wasn't demand. We know that office space has been disrupted 100% throughout the world. And it probably forever will be until we get enough people coming back to offices. So I don't know what the specific instances are with these buildings, but perhaps they built in a time where things were a lot better. And then once the buildings are completed, it's not as good of a time, and they're not filling up like they thought. Maybe they didn't do the market studies like they should have, and they should have done a little bit more homework. I don't know, but a lot of things can happen in this case. I've seen it many times where people overbuild, where certain markets get overbuilt, is what we call it. Overbuilt means just too many people came in thinking that they could do no wrong, and then things slow down, and they're left holding the bag, so to speak.
I think one thing that I really like about the question that you asked, Annette, is that you're paying attention. Like Jake said, your real estate mind's working, that development mind is working. If you could become the expert in any field, and this is not just real estate, but whatever field you choose, if you become very observant and you notice things and you pay attention to things, you can become the expert in the room, if you will. Whether it's your local market in real estate or whether it's in a separate industry, if you are always curious to understand why things are happening, what's going on, and you pay attention, you're more likely to see opportunities when they come up. So, for example, with that example that you shared, that you've got this housing project and it doesn't seem to be occupied, they started 2 years ago. Take that curiosity, start asking questions, become familiar with the situation. Over time, you'll become the expert. You'll be the one that everyone will go to because you understand what's happening. And there may be an opportunity where it's sometimes one person's misfortune is another person's fortune. And sometimes there are opportunities in real estate where someone overbuilds, that it could be repurposed for something else where there might be some better returns on that. Anyway, if you're familiar with your market and you know what's going on, you're going to be valuable to other parties that might be coming in from out of country, out of state, out of province, out of your city that's looking for opportunity, and you can be that person. Blessing, let's go to you for a question that you might have.
Thank you. All right. So earlier, Jake mentioned that the BYU is planning an internship for students. I heard something like that too. I wanted to know, the internship, will it be available for BYU-Pathway students, or it's going to be an in-person internship?
The internship that we've done this is our second semester of doing an internship, and it is through BYU-Pathway. It's actually called Mountain River Partners, and it's affiliated with BYU-Pathway. And so it won't be in person. It's online. It's all done by Zoom, and it's all throughout the world. So we have usually 30 to 40 students online, and like I said, it's been a great opportunity. It's about a 10 to 12 week weekly course, and then there's some homework associated with it. But anyway, that's what that is, and we can get more information out to all of you. But I'm not sure how they're marketing it at this time, but somehow they've been finding, like 40 students each time. So if you're interested, I'm sure we can figure that out. So.
And you'll be doing that again in the fall, so not
Correct.
here in the next
Not summer,
couple months.
but in the fall is the
Yeah, I think that they'll probably start advertising that here in a couple months. So be looking for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cesara?
Good morning, Utah. Good evening, the rest of the countries. My name is Cesare Tonini, and I live in Milan, Italy. About 6 months ago, we have the great news by our President Nelson that we'll be having our own temple. The fact that you are in real estate, I am wondering if your company have any projects to come to Italy or maybe overseas. And thank you for your time and response.
Thank you so much. Our company has not developed properties overseas. The challenge that we faced, it's not that we would not be willing to do that. We just there are so many regulations. Oftentimes, if you're doing foreign investment, that we feel like the opportunities, we can't even keep up with all the opportunities that we see within the United States. And in fact, we usually are staying focused on the Western United States for the most part. We still do projects other places. So, our quality of life would probably diminish if we started doing foreign investment, just because we'd probably be traveling more than an hour or two by plane. We'd have to travel like 12 hours, and we love our families and we love other parts of our life, but it's not that we're close to that. And obviously, Italy would be a wonderful place. If I could think of anywhere to visit, to develop, that would be probably my #1 place to go. So it's not that we're against it, but we just haven't done that. And that's amazing that you're getting a temple. Congratulations.
If I may add to that, this will be applicable to anyone, whether you're in the Philippines, Africa, Italy, South America. If you're really interested in real estate, become familiar with local publications that talk about the economics as to who the builders are. If you want to work smart, find out which are the developers, builders, etc., that are doing the most work in your area. And then find opportunities to network with those individuals that work and associate with those organizations. Rub shoulders with people in your local economies that are involved in development and building. And one of the questions, and we're gonna come to Lynette in just a second, but Jake, one of the questions that's being asked in here on the YouTube channel is how do you, and this is from, it doesn't have a name. It says, my question is, how do you let employers know or recruiters know you're competent for their jobs? Because there's lots of job seekers applying for the same job. So the question is, and this goes for anything, how do you show to an employer that you're competent, that you are a good fit, that you have the capacity? Maybe there is a little bit of a learning curve that they'll have to go through as they start a job. Employers are always concerned about, okay, they're not where we want them to be, but will they get to where we need them to be pretty quickly? How does one show that they have the competencies?
Mhm. I think that begins with doing exactly what you're doing right now. I mean, you're on this webinar. I would be relentlessly pursuing opportunities I mean, we talked about networking, not just networking, get as much education as you can. Try and find any type of internship. We have this real estate internship, there's finance internships. The more you can build your resume, and then try and get hands-on experience in whatever that might be, in your community, wherever you live. If there's hands-on internship opportunities or experiences, the more you can build your willingness to do whatever it takes to get a job or to be the top candidate, do it. And so don't be hesitant to really dive in. The other thing I was going to mention is the church is growing in many of the countries where you live, the church is growing exponentially. And there is great need for real estate help in your area offices. So many of you might live near the area office in your area, and they're trying to build more temples. They're trying to build more chapels. They're trying to build. So the church is in need of hiring all real estate executives also for the building of the church in the countries where you live. So that's another opportunity. But yeah, I think just to differentiate yourself by being relentlessly in pursuit of building a resume, just like you are right now by being a part of this webinar.
Great. Lynette, I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, Brother Jake. My question is a bit general, so I'd like to ask on behalf of anyone watching at any point in their career, whether starting out or far ahead, how would you advise them to approach big decisions in their careers when the path forward doesn't exactly seem very clear?
Yeah. Well, I know this is a career chat, but I'm gonna get religious and spiritual with you. First and foremost, I think, involving your Heavenly Father with any decision that you're making and really pleading with Him to guide your path. I believe that all of us have a mission here on earth to fulfill, and I believe that He has a mission for every one of you that are a part of this webinar, to fulfill, not just spiritually, but also with your careers and with the things that you're going to accomplish in the future. He needs you to have successful careers in order to build successful families and also to build the church in whatever area you are. You need to make enough money so that you can also serve God. So all things are spiritual to our Heavenly Father. And so involve Him in whatever it is that you're doing. Involve Him in your decision making pertaining to what career path he would like you to take. What is your mission? What are your interests? And what are you good at? You know, a lot of times our mission in life is based on what we're good at, right? If you're good at mathematics, then start going down that path. If you're good at project management, then pursue that, or finance, or whatever that might be. The Lord has a specific path for each of you. And so I would advise you to involve him. And guess what? Doors are going to open in whatever field that is that the Lord would like to take you. And then he needs you to build families, and he needs you to build the church. So I hope that isn't deviating too much from the conversation, but I think it's true.
I think that's bringing it back to the center. Thank you, Jake. And we'll take one more question. After Solomon has asked his question, you've answered that. Jake, will you just give some closing remarks? Maybe you can kind of build off of what you were just sharing, and then share your testimony, and then we'll end there. So Solomon, go ahead and ask the last question.
Oh, thank you so much. I lost my network before. I'm Solomon Adeyera from Nigeria. I'm studying software engineering from BYU currently, Idaho. So my question is, I was curious when I saw the beautiful project he shared with us this afternoon. I was so amazed because I had experience in the building industry sometimes back in my childhood. But now I'm into tech. I'm so curious about the automations that comes into building this project and the time it will take to build them. So is there any kind of technology automation you employ, or is there anything I can gain as a tech enthusiast that can help me to go into the building industry? Thank you.
That's a great question, Solomon, and thank you for your comments. And you know, I think technology, you know, has enhanced everything. Unfortunately, in terms of speeding up the development or the construction of buildings, we need to come a lot farther with technology, because we have not, you know, construction techniques have not really changed dramatically. Now, what has changed with technology with technology in buildings is, you know, a lot of the technology that goes into air conditioning or heating systems, or, you know, those types of things are improved. A lot of the technology related to leasing apartments, you know, and tracking those leasing and tracking lease rates is improved. But in terms of actual construction of buildings, the technology needs to, you know, we're not doing what do you call it, like 3D print buildings very often these days, you know? I mean, I wish we could build an office building that was a 3D print office building. And you see once in a while some of that, but not a lot of it. But yeah, I think, you know, it's amazing that you're pursuing technology, and there's a need for technology in every industry. And I think we need to just keep innovating in real estate as well. So thank you for your question.
Well, Jake,
Thank you so much.
if you could share some closing comments, remarks, Jake, as we wrap up, and then your testimony, and then we'll finish up.
Well, just to wrap up, I cannot see all of you, but I can see those that have been helping with the questions, and I just see such a bright future ahead for each of you. And I just, as I look in your eyes across this Zoom, I just think the world is out there for you to grab it and to succeed. And I know that the Lord has a path for each of you. I really do. And you're in your countries there to build the Lord's church. Like I mentioned before, he has a mission for each of you. And many of you probably are currently serving in church capacities, church callings. Our worth is not based on our church callings, but the Lord needs you to help move his work forward in each of your countries. And that may not be a big calling, but it's as a minister, as a mother, as a father, you know, whatever that calling is, you know, you have a great future ahead. And I know that the Lord will guide your path related to your careers as you involve him. And it may feel like a bumpy path. It may not come overnight. It may not come easily, but I promise you that if you continue to try to involve him and make sure that he's a part of every decision you make, that eventually you'll find that path or that mission that the Lord has prepared you for. My path and my mission is different than yours. And all of us are sent to earth to accomplish what the Lord wants us to accomplish. And there's not really more or less, just different. We all have different paths. And I testify that you are part of BYU-Pathway, which is, it exists because the Lord's church has been inspired to set up BYU-Pathway to provide education for people all across the world. And I'm grateful for a prophet and, apostles and leaders of this church who have been inspired to set up BYU-Pathway. And I know that it's an inspired program and an inspired university. And I, leave my blessing with all of you, just that the Lord might guide you. I testify that you're a part of for those that are members. I don't know if everyone's a member, but those that are part of the Church of Jesus Christ, that it is the true church of God here on earth. And those that maybe aren't members, I encourage you to look into membership, because I know that you'll find great joy and happiness through the Church of Jesus Christ. And say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, everyone, for joining. God bless you. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you again next